Today on Week in Review, the local Skeena MLA recently spoke out in the legislature. A BC fisheries advocate said it's a critical time for BC's salmon population, and a major community event is being put on by the Terrace RCMP. Hello, I'm Cael Maslin, and thanks for joining us here on Week in Review, where we cover all of the news here in the Northwest from this past week. The addiction and overdose crisis in this province has our local Skeena MLA, who is also the critic for mental health and addictions, speaking out in the legislature. Here's CTV's Craig Krause with more.
She deserved better, and this government failed her.
When will supportive housing live up to its name in BC? That's the question Tyler Gibbs is asking the BC NDP government, a year after his mother, Diane Chandler, was found dead inside her supportive housing unit in Surrey.
In my mom's suite in particular, we found all those crack pipes. My sister and I, when we were clearing her things, I think it was 14, I think.
His mother said to have been misidentified during a wellness check, left in her room dead for 11 days. An environment intended to help people with addiction, something Gibbs says was anything but.
It was really horrifying for me as well to see that.
Sparking calls for change on the floor of BC's legislature Wednesday.
He told me he doesn't want another empty condolence or carefully worded excuse. He wants accountability.
Minister of Housing Ravi Kahlon responding, saying changes have been made.
Now, every single supportive housing site is required to have a wellness check done on every individual in the room every 24 hours.
While also required to verify each resident and have a plan to notify family members immediately.
And that didn't happen in this family's case, and I'm very sorry for the family, but it has made significant systemic changes in all of our housing.
The minister says the province does support those addicted with levels of care such as supportive housing options without drug use. The BC Conservatives unsatisfied with the response.
I certainly haven't seen any evidence of that. Anybody I've spoken to on the street has told me they will not go into supportive housing because it's more dangerous. They'd rather stay sleeping in a tent.
A back and forth, something that won't bring back Chandler.
If something can change out of this because of her death, that would be something, and something she would be happy about.
The Conservatives are asking for an independent review of all deaths in provincially funded supportive housing, along with a shift away from facilities with drug use. Craig Krause, CTV News, Vancouver.
A BC salmon advocate said that it's a critical time for BC salmon as negotiations of the Pacific Salmon Treaty are underway. CFTK-TV's Cael Maslin has more of the details.
The executive director of the Watershed Watch Salmon Society says that currently BC is losing a lot of its potential salmon stock to Alaskan fisheries, who have less stringent fisheries laws than we do here.
Alaskan interception fisheries. So essentially all the fish that swim out of our BC rivers go out into the open Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Alaska, and they spend a year, 2 or 3 out there, and then they make their way down the coast of Alaska back home to their BC rivers to spawn. And there's a bunch of fisheries in Alaska that are primarily there to nab those BC fish that are migrating back home to BC, and they're catching a lot of our fish. They're catching a growing share of the total catch as we've ramped down some of our fisheries in BC to conserve our diminished stocks. And so in a lot of years, Alaskans are now catching more BC fish than BC fishermen are, and we need them to scale that back so we can get their help to rebuild these stocks so we can all share the wealth.
Hill says these topics are supposed to be addressed through the Pacific Salmon Treaty between Canada and the U.S., which governs how both countries manage each other's fish populations and share information, but that the current treaty isn't dealing with the issue.
They're not taking genetic samples from the catch to tell us what rivers these fish are actually from, and they're not, when they have to throw back species like Chinook and steelhead, they're actually not reporting the numbers, and they're not throwing them back alive like we're required to do here in BC. So there's just a huge array of problems with the way they're managing our fish.
Hill says this is why we require strong leadership from Fisheries Oceans Canada, as well as the Fisheries Minister, to get the best deal for Canada in the treaty, of which negotiations are underway. The chosen Fisheries Minister didn't end up being from BC. Joanne Thompson was elected in St. John's East, Newfoundland.
This government continues to understand the cultural and the economic importance of the fisheries. And I can tell you that I am very humbled and proud to be responsible for this file.
Hill says his hope is that Thompson will be paying attention to BC waters, as we have until 2028 to lock down a strong deal for BC. He says that currently, easily a third of the salmon population has been decimated by these interceptions in recent years. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Back on Friday at noon, Category 3 open fires officially became prohibited in the Cassiar Fire Zone as well as some parts of the Skata Fire Zone. The parts of the Skata Zone that got hit with the ban are the Old Caelum portion of the Coast Mountain Forest District and the Stikeen portion of the Skata-Stikeen Forest District. These new bans come about a month after Category 3's fires were also not allowed anymore in the Bulkley and Nadina fire zones. And during this upcoming weekend, a major community event is being put on by the police, and they will get a helping hand from none other than an Olympic torch. On Saturday, June 7th, an event that is meant to support the BC Special Olympics and is being put on by the Terrace RCMP will see a recognizable item from the past make an appearance during its runtime. The Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics BC is happening around the whole province of BC, and in Terrace, it will go for around 5 kilometers, mainly on the Millennium Trail, starting at the Terrace RCMP Detachment Building, stopping at Frank Street, and then turning back again. And for the actual torch part of the event organizer, Constable Kelly Cates, was able to get in contact with Terrace's longtime former Deputy Fire Chief, Dave Jepson, who still had possession of a torch used during the Vancouver 2010 Olympics that he got to keep.
So during the Olympics run-up, the idea was that they were going to have a torch, lit torch, obviously, go across the country, which is going to be used for obviously to light it, especially in Vancouver. Terrace was picked at that point in time as one of the destination places to have a special Olympic cauldron. And that would set off a chain of events for our community. It was incredible. It was really great for Terrace to have that focus and have people come to town and to take part in it. I think it was a special day for the community. It was definitely a special day for me. I was picked through committee members and whoever within the system in Terrace to be a torch bearer during the event. And more special for me was I was actually designated as the last person, and I lit the torch to start the events in regards to the 2010 Olympics for Terrace. So
Constable Cates also later disclosed that it had been quite a while since this event had been done in Terrace, while also telling how the idea to put it on came about as well.
To my knowledge, this is the first time it's been done in Terrace. At least in the last 12 years for sure, it hasn't been done. And so I usually try to have something on the go in the spring for community activity. In the past, we've done bike rodeos, things like that. And the torch run was something that had come up in the past as a possibility. And this year, it just seemed like the perfect time to initiate it.
Both Cates and Jepson have grown increasingly excited for the event and are encouraging everyone to come support it by registering online to not only take part in the run itself, but also to hear several speeches at the opening ceremony and for the barbecue after the run ends that's being sponsored by several local community businesses. Up now is a report on a local sporting event that is set to happen sometime towards the end of this month. At the end of June, the Terrace Sportsplex will serve as the location where Taekwondo practitioners of various ages will have a day to test their skills, as a one-day tournament is being hosted here by a local dojang known as Atlantis Taekwondo.
Well, we're hosting the BC Cup for Taekwondo, so it'll be all of BC and some of Alberta as well. I'll be coming to compete, so right from young kids, white belts, to men and women, black belts competing in sparring and patterns, and yeah, it's open to the public, so it'd be awesome if people came by and checked it out.
The official date of the tournament is June 28th, and it's set to start at around 9 a.m., with it lasting about until 5 p.m. More information about the tournament can be found on Atlantis Taekwondo's Facebook and Instagram pages online, or on posters put up around the city of Terrace. This tourney is also happening not all that long after Atlantis Taekwondo came back from competition elsewhere.
Yeah, we just got back from nationals. Took a few students, Miss Rogers, Mr. Mr. Karchenko and Memphis Bob, and Miss Rogers got gold in sparring, so it was quite the feat. And then Mr. Karchenko, he got bronze in sparring, and Memphis Bob got bronze in sparring as well.
And of course, the folks here at Atlantis Taekwondo are hoping that as many people as possible will come out to the tournament at the end of June. Up next, a legendary skateboarder made a surprise appearance in Smithers. Welcome back. Last week, the city of Prince Rupert saw the sidewalk along 2nd Avenue right next to the Rupert Square Mall begin to slump badly enough to the point that the mall had to be closed down for a little bit. And while the city is still monitoring the status of the sidewalk, they have also since closed down not only that damaged section of the sidewalk, but the entire area where the mall and sidewalk meet as well, while also attempting to avoid traffic conflict with the neighboring highway. Every access point for pedestrians and vehicles trying to park on the same side as that sidewalk have been closed off too, with pedestrians being encouraged to obey all detour indications to keep being safe. The city of Prince Rupert next said that they provide another update on the situation when possible. Towards the end of last week, the District of Kitimat issued a statement saying that they're placing their water system under a water quality advisory due to elevated turbidity levels in the Kitimat River. The advisory is set to remain active until a drinking water officer decides that it can be lifted, and the district is working with Northern Health on this matter. In the meantime, Northern Health is recommending that pregnant women, children, people with weaker immune systems, and elderly people only consume boiled water while the advisory is in place. The Kitimat RCMP has put out yet another new report that detailed what crime/incidents they encountered during the majority of the final days of May. One part of the report detailed how some officers conducted some vessel safety checks at a local marina, and they looked at about 10 vessels in total. The most common thing that was found wrong with the boats was them having expired PDFs, while some others needed to get updated safety gear or had missing items like flares or valid fire extinguishers. Also at the end of last week, the Smithers Skate Park Society set up a pair of events to celebrate the recent completion of the Phase 3 expansion of the Smithers Skate Park. The first event took up much of the later part of the morning and the early afternoon. It was aptly called the Learn to Skate event, where members of the Skate Park Society gave out some tips to people who were either trying skateboarding for the first time or are still trying to figure some things out. And the later afternoon saw some pro skaters come down to the park to put on a demonstration, with the headliner of those skaters being the legendary Tony Hawk. Other athletes at the event included Lizzie Armanto, Mark McMorris, and Grayson Fletcher. The BC Maritime Employers Association and the union representing roughly 700 port supervisors say they have ratified a new collective agreement after a lengthy dispute, though they have not released details of the new deal. The employers group and International Longshore and Warehouse Union Ship and Dock Foreman Local 514 issued a joint statement saying that they look forward to implementing the deal, which extends from April 2023 to the end of March 2027. The employers had to lock out Local 514 members in what they called a defensive action last November, while the union had voted to authorize strike action, but said members were only planning partial strikes at the time, such as an overtime ban. Container cargo traffic at terminals along the coast was halted, prompting the federal government to step in later that month. After the break, the Burns Lake RCMP recently made a major drug bust. Welcome back. The town of Smithers recently sent out a notification to let the locals know that they're accepting applications for their newly launched program of theirs. The program is being referred to as the Dollars to the Door program, which is being funded by the Northern Development Initiative Trust, and it will allow for any interested property owners to potentially get a grant of up to $10,000 to use for a multi-unit residential project. The deadline to apply to the program is June 30th, and applications can be sent in online. The Terrace RCMP detachment recently acted as the host to a ceremony where a King Charles Coronation Medal was given to an officer being recognized for making extraordinary contributions to her community. Roseanne Coblos was presented the medal for tirelessly supporting all of the northwestern BC communities that she has served, being an impactful leader, and always going above and beyond to help out social causes. Terrace's detachment commander, Inspector Terry Gillespie, was the one who nominated Coblos for the medal, and ended up being the one to present her with it in that ceremony, as both were clad in their official Mountie uniforms. Kamlos previously served as a constable for both the Gitxsan and Nisga'a nations before she made the choice to finish her career in her hometown of Terrace. Right before the end of May, the Burns Lake RCMP's Crime Reduction Unit made quite the discovery while conducting a traffic stop on a person that was already previously known to the police. The Crime Reduction Unit noticed the suspect operating his vehicle, and after stopping him for a motor vehicle offense, they saw easily noticeable suspected drugs in the vehicle and arrested the driver along with the vehicle's passenger. Further searching of the vehicle led to the officers finding over $500 in cash, over 30 grams of suspected crack cocaine, and other evidence of drug trafficking. The police later searched the suspect's residence and also found illegal cigarettes, over $10,000 in cash, various blunt-edged weapons, and other suspected drugs like psilocybin, cocaine, and prescription pills. The suspect did eventually get released from custody, but the investigation is still ongoing. The Smithers RCMP have put out a request for help from the public to identify a man who might have been responsible for starting a pair of smaller-scale fires. On both May 31st and June 1st, a man who was walking his 2 dogs is believed to potentially be responsible for lighting the contents of a pair of garbage cans by the Bulkley Valley Christian School on fire. The fires are believed to have been started sometime between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. on both nights. The Smithers police have since obtained a pair of surveillance pictures of the man that is currently suspected to be the one who started both fires. They're now asking for anyone with information that can identify the man to call them at 250-847-3233. Still to come, the Heiltsuk people recently made a massive signing. Welcome back. The RCMP is taking a big step towards building greater trust, transparency, and accountability. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police is officially launching a national rollout of body-worn cameras, a move to enhance public trust in law enforcement. The program represents a significant financial commitment. The initiative follows a federal directive issued in 2020 encouraging law enforcement agencies to adopt modern tools that support a fair and transparent policing. Frontline officers across Canada are expected to wear body cameras, which will be attached to their uniforms, and they will be recording sound and video during police interactions on service calls. The rollout will continue across Canada throughout 2025, and the National Police Federation has voiced out their full support for the program. A report from a reported audit from BC's Forestry Practices Board has found that Tahltan Nation Development Corporation complied with the Forest and Range Practices Act and Wildfire Act in all significant respects on its 3.2 million hectare First Nations woodland license. The audit examined harvesting, road and bridge work, and wildfire protection. The board said the audit confirmed good forestry planning and practices while outlining 4 areas for improvement. Meanwhile, the Tahltan Nation has announced that it agreed to formally begin collaborating with the province of BC on a Phase 1 land use plan, which they say is a significant milestone in advancing Tahltan stewardship goals. The Tahltan Nation has developed and finalized a Tahltan stewardship plan through the Tahltan Stewardship Initiative, which they say outlines Tahltan principles for caring and stewarding all land within Tahltan territory. Phase 1 of the land use plan, which aims to conserve and permanently protect vital areas like Clapham, Level Mountain, Chesley, and Tahltan Lake. It also seeks to enhance co-management and shared governance tools. And in a release from the province, they say that they are also working on the land use plans with the Taku River Tlingit, Kaskadene, Gitnyao, and Nisga'a nations. The province said that last week, Premier David Eby outlined government's vision for building prosperity centered on economic growth, reconciliation, and conservation in northwestern BC. The vision includes partnering with First Nations to achieve large-scale conservation and strengthen reconciliation. Engagement on the land's use plans will begin in the coming weeks. It was a pivotal day for the Heiltsuk people in the central coast of BC, as the nation has just signed a brand new constitution. CTV's Ben Milger reports.
Today is a momentous occasion for the Heiltsuk people that will echo for many generations.
Signing a new constitution in the Big House in Bella Heiltsuk Nation leaders took a step forward by looking to the past.
It clarifies and creates certainty for ourselves, for other governments, such as the provincial and federal government, as well as proponents that might want to do business in our territory.
The new constitution has been in the works for close to 2 decades, involved extensive community engagement, and passed a referendum with an overwhelming 67% majority.
Today we declare to the world that we, the Heiltsuk Nation, and governments are renewing and reclaiming our ancestral laws and authority.
Traditionally, the Heiltsuk and other BC First Nations developed a system of hereditary leadership. Under the Indian Act, Canada imposed elected chiefs and councils on them. The new constitution enshrines a framework that will see power and decision-making shared by the elected chief and council, hereditary chiefs, and the Women's Council in a combination of modern democracy and historic ways of governance.
It's going to provide guidance and leadership for our next generations to be able to steer the ship of the Heiltsuk Nation to propel ourselves forward in a good way, holding on to our ancestral teachings.
The Friday signing ceremony was followed by a feast in the Big House and a whole weekend celebrating Heiltsuk culture. Ben Milger, CTV News.
High-stakes negotiations are ongoing after the U.S. followed through with a punishing tariff on steel and aluminum. They're now at 50%, up from the previous mark of 25%. So far, Ottawa hasn't retaliated to the crushing blow to industries that employ thousands of people. CTV's Mark McMahon looks at the implications for BC.
BC's only aluminum smelter is in Kitimat, where the Rio Tinto facility known as BC Works employs 1,100 people and indirectly employs many more. No word yet on what the tariff increase will mean for the smelter, but the business community is hopeful Rio Tinto takes a long-term view.
Obviously, this is a huge hit for the aluminum industry. But again, I know that they will take care of their company and they'll take care of the employees and, really try to do what is best overall for the community.
In the Lower Mainland, the local aluminum manufacturing sector is closely watching any developments on tariffs. Uncertainty, the word on everyone's lips.
It's concerning. To be honest, we're not 100% sure exactly what it means yet because the dust is still settling. But an increase of 25 to 50 obviously makes it that much less affordable for us to operate.
Prime Minister Mark Carney pledging to respond if needed, but not before giving trade talks with the U.S. a chance.
The new tariffs on steel and aluminum are unlawful, unjustified, and illogical. I agree with the member. We are in intensive negotiations with the Americans and in parallel preparing reprisals if those negotiations do not succeed.
At the same time, a plea from the industry to mandate the use of Canadian steel in government projects.
Bridges, highway projects, transit projects, and just the requirement saying, hey, look, we want to see Canadian-made products in those projects would go a long ways to helping us and other fabricators or other steel companies.
That wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. Make sure to tune in to our regular newscast on Monday at 5, 6, 6:30 at 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thanks for tuning in and have a good weekend.